Choosing Family by ginnyrules27. Chapter 4. The next couple of months flew by, and before Hades knew it, he and Persephone had fallen into a routine of parenthood. While things were still a little chilly between the adults, in that Hades was still sleeping in the guest room, Persephone had taken a shine to Mal. It was rare that the goddess of vegetation was without Mal in her arms. The only time she forewent holding Mal was when Persephone would take a walk around the aisle. It wasn't because she wanted to leave the baby behind, but it was too big of a risk. Everyone knew that she lived with Hades. By now everyone on the aisle would have at least heard of Hades grabbing Maleficent's baby. While most of the citizens of the Isle were moronic, there were a select few who had more than 2 brain cells to rub together. There was nothing more dangerous than an aggravated Maleficent, and if she saw Persephone walking around with Mal, it would not be a pleasant result. That didn't mean anything inside Hades' lair. When they were inside, it was as if the Isle didn't exist. "Hi, Mally," Persephone cooed as she carried the young demi-goddess around, the purple-haired face squealing in delight. "Ah, you're so happy!" "Yes, you are. Who's the prettiest girl in the underworld?" Hades walked up and couldn't help but smile at the sight. His wife had never looked better. With her long brown hair tied up in a messy bun, her body clad in a sweatshirt and sweatpants Mal had spit up on about 5 times since Persephone got to the Isle, and just walking Mal around the den, his daughter's thick purple hair messy from sleep. Hades leaned against the door frame and took in the sight. "Enjoying the view?" Persephone asked as she caught sight of him and gave him a small smile. "I was," Hades nodded and returned the smile. What are you ladies up to?" "Mally's up for her nap and wanted to see the den," Persephone told him. "I was going to grab one of the toys I brought from her from Oridon, but my hands were full with Mal." "I'll get it," Hades told her, still leaning on the doorframe and making no indication he was actually going to grab the toy. "Which one were you thinking of grabbing?" Persephone gave him a small smile. Ever since she had returned from Oridon, Hades had been at her beck and call when he wasn't working down in the underworld, as if to prove to her that she was the only woman who had his heart. Even if Persephone knew that that wasn't true. Every father's heart, 100%, belonged to one woman, their daughter, and Persephone was completely fine with that, as Mal had stolen her heart as well. "Stuff?" Hades asked, his voice breaking through her thoughts. "Can't really get the toy if I don't know which one I'm looking for." "Oh, sorry," Persephone said, shaking her head to clear it. "It's a small half-dome-shaped thing with items that dangle down so Mal can bat at them while lying on her back. I still need to set the thing up, though." Hades nodded and then chuckled. "Look behind the sofa, Ted." Persephone frowned and took a peek, only to find the item that she had described already put together. "I found the box in the guest room the other day, half kicked under the bed. Thought it had fallen out of one of the bags you brought," Hades said when Persephone looked over at him in shock. "You'd fallen asleep, so I thought it would be a good idea to put it together, just in case." "That's so sweet," Persephone told him as Hades walked into the other room. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. I know you have a reputation to protect." Hades shook his head and chuckled. "No one would believe you if you'd said anything anyway, but thank you." "Here you go, Mally," Persephone cooed as she shifted Mal so that she was holding her with one arm and grabbed the toy from behind the sofa. "Hades, could you—" Her husband had already known what she was going to ask, as he laid out a blanket and Persephone had purchased a couple of years ago. It was getting a little run down, but it would still serve its purpose. "You know, I could get used to this," Persephone told him, a small smirk forming on her face. "This mind-reading thing you have going on." "You've already asked for this blanket at least 3 times today already," Hades said with a small smirk pulling at his own lips as he watched from his spot behind the sofa. "I thought I'd save some trouble and assume this is what you were asking for." Persephone chuckled and gave her husband a kiss on the cheek. "Thank you," she said, as she laid Mal down under the top of the dome. Her stepdaughter seemed to be confused as to what the purpose of it was, as she just lay there. "I think Mal doesn't want to play," Hades chuckled, walking over to them. "Maybe if we move one of the dangly bits?" Persephone asked, moving to the closest one to try to get Mal's attention. "I don't understand. All the new parents in Oridon love this. Maybe it's not set up right?" "Well, Mal's not an Oridon baby," Hades said, scooping up his daughter, who had begun squealing with delight as Hades started to bounce her. The hood of her dragon onesie flopped off her head from where it had landed when she was on her back. Hades honestly didn't know where Persephone managed to get a purple dragon onesie from in Oridon, or how she had managed to avoid anyone asking questions about it, since she hadn't mentioned anything or anyone being curious about the purchase. But he had to admit Mal was extremely adorable wearing it. Right, now she gets her entertainment from me yelling at Pain or Panic. You can't do that all the time. You do have an underworld to run. Yeah, well, Pain and Panic aren't totally moronic. Hades said. They might have failed with Wonder Breath, but they still have been very good with Mal. Maybe because they're afraid of you? Persephone ventured, not showing any reaction to Hades' nickname for Hercules. It was clear that there was no love lost between the uncle and nephew. It would be a good idea not to call him that around Mal. Why? Hades scoffed. It's not as if she'll ever meet him. Still, she is his cousin, Persephone said. If Mal ever gets off the Isle, Hercules will be a good ally for her to have, especially if it's during the 6 months I'm on the Isle. Hades shook his head. His wife was an amazing woman, but she seemed to only see the positives in life. Maybe it came from only having to spend half a year on the Isle instead of the rest of her life. You really think King Beastie will allow the kids off the Isle? He probably thinks the kids deserve to be here, Hades said, and Persephone shook her head. They'd had this conversation multiple times throughout the 4 years the Isle had been created. How was your walk today? Hades asked, obviously changing the subject, but Persephone didn't, then dredging up the old conversation that would only end with them fighting. As pleasant as always, Persephone told him. No one really bothers me on the walks. Probably helps that my powers aren't suppressed by the barrier, so they know I'm not defenseless. Plus, you've been here for the life of the Isle, Hades pointed out. By this point, even the most moronic henchmen know that you're associated with me. Persephone chuckled. Oh! Associated, am I? Is that what I am to you? Oh, I'm sorry, Hades said with a small smirk. I should have said beloved, shouldn't I? Much better, Persephone said and got up to give Hades a kiss. At least, she would have, if Mal hadn't moved her head so it was between Persephone's lips and Hades's. Oh, we have got to work on your timing, young lady. Hades shook his head in amusement. She just wants to be the only girl in her dad's life, Persephone told him with a kind smile on her face as she ran her hands through Mal's hair. Either that or she's annoyed that you stopped bouncing her. She seems to really like that. Well, Mally, it's time for lunch, Hades said as they walked into the kitchen. Steph, that formula you brought has been a lifesaver. I brought some extra from Oridon as well, Persephone said, sitting down by the counter in the kitchen as Hades set up Mal with a bottle. I know how scarce food is here, and the last thing I want is for a baby to suffer because of it. Are you thinking of... Yes, Hades, Persephone nodded. I won't give Maleficent or any of her allies, but I will make it available among the Isle. If need be, I'll give it to Jafar and he can sell it. That's not a bad idea, Hades said. Except people will wonder where Jafar got it. Last thing we would want is for it to be linked back to you. They'll wonder why you're buying formula. Persephone sighed. I know. If you want, I can just keep it here, and you can decide what to do with it. I know the amount I brought for Mal should last around a year, so you shouldn't run out when I have to go back to Oridon. That should be more than enough, Hades said. Didn't that baby book you read say Mal should go on to more solid foods by then? Every baby's different, Hades, Persephone reminded him. Remember that book was talking about mortal babies. I don't think there's a baby book that would tell you the milestones for a half-fae, half-god baby. Hades snorted in amusement as he fished out a napkin to wipe off Mal's mouth as she spit up some of the formula. If I was so inclined, I could talk to Maleficent about her life growing up, to see when the Fae hit some certain milestones. But I'm not inclined to do that. In fact, I'm more inclined to stay my end of the aisle than talk to Maleficent. That does seem to be the safer option, Persephone nodded as Mal babbled happily in the background. I'll just include some solid baby food my next 6 months, just to be on the safe side. Oh, and can you get some more of those crackers that are shaped like animals? I know Mal can't eat them yet, but Pain and Panic love them. They're good rewards for when they haven't completely messed something up. I'll add them to the list, Persephone said with a chuckle. Besides, the next time I'm here, Mal might actually be old enough to eat them. The smile faltered from her lips, as she realised how much of Mal's life she would actually miss with being 6 months off the Isle. She knew it was the arrangement she and Hades had, but now that there was a child involved, it just seemed unfair.
Stuff?
Hades asked, noticing the frown and how quiet his wife had gotten.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, Persephone nodded. I was just thinking about how much of Lal's life I'll be missing while I'm off the Isle. Hades nodded and picked Mal up from the counter.
Well, I know it won't be the same, but she'll be on every call you make, unless she's napping. Plus, it's the Isle. Not much ever changes around here.
I know, Persephone sighed, but she's going to be growing up, and I'll miss a bunch of it while in Oridon. It's not fair for her. Hades chuckled.
She's a child of the Isle of the Lost. When has life ever been fair to them?
Persephone frowned, but she couldn't deny her husband had a point. However, before she could say anything, a smell hit her nose and she began to shake her head. Dear, I think Mal needs changing.
I think you might be right. Hades nodded, wrinkling his nose as the smell wafted into his nostrils. Let's go, Mally. I think it's time for a fresh diaper.
Persephone smiled as Hades and Mal turned the corner, Mal's babbles fading off. Sighing, Persephone got back up to join her husband. She loved every moment she could get with Mal and Hades. She wouldn't trade them for anything. Little did they know the storm cloud that was about to cover their sunshine. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Lovely chapter that of new parenting. Very, very sweet. And oof, that cliffhanger. Brace yourselves. Well, anyway, like, comment and subscribe, hit the bell, blah blah blah. Take care, my guys, girls and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Bye!